Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Rappahannock on this beautiful February morning. My name is Barbara Haynes and I will be your service leader today. We're very happy that you are here. You're welcome to this very special place where we honor and appreciate whomever you love, whatever your beliefs, and wherever you happen to be on your spiritual journey. We welcome you here at our UUFR Fellowship as we consider your presence a gift. We also welcome those who are taking part of our service on Zoom. You're a very important part of our congregation, and I'm very glad that you're with us. Okay, we're going to now light our chalice. We light our chalice to remind ourselves of our highest aspirations, to inspire us to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humility and humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe and to each other. We also light this chalice in kinship with all the other Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world, as we are bound together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change the world. The topic today, as you can see in our program, talks about where do we go from here? A very timely subject. I personally struggle to find perspective in what I consider a very scary time for our nation. A number of us here at UUFR attend the Great Decisions Forum held at the Lancaster Library every Friday in March and February and March. And the forum covers the challenges the United States faces throughout the globe that requires deep knowledge and understanding of the nuances of various issues. It's a very challenging world out there, and we need steady hands and heads to deal with them. But getting back to me and what I understand are my biases, I guess we all have them. And I'm making an effort to understand why others have a different point of view by asking them why they feel that way, and then trying to listen without judging. Listening sometimes is hard, but it's important to do. Sometimes tough, but maybe the first step in gaining the perspective I'm looking for. Dr. Cutler has worked at every level of social work during her career, from server delivery to policy analysis, research, education, and administration. She has over 25 years of experience in social work, including working with both public and nonprofit organizations. She is an advocate of the disadvantaged and the marginalized. Much of her work is on the physical and emotional well-being of others, and very importantly, in educating future social workers. We very much appreciate having her here today. She did mention that she moved to Deltaville with her husband because they are sailors, and that she is a traveler. She's been to Amsterdam. She's fortunate to have a daughter living in Paris. So she's going to Paris, in March? And she's also traveled to Japan. So she brings a lot of experience and background and observation to her talk today.
Sure, many of you will have heard this before, as have I, but I think I need to hear it often. This is The Guest House by Rumi. This being is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows, who violently sweep your house and empty its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing. Invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. The words of Rumi. There's very deep meaning in some of the really simple words that I've heard in this service. I love how the concerns are wrapped in the joy. And this sense of community cannot be overstated. How do I answer? Where do we go from here? Every day makes me question where we even are at any given moment. It's not just the political arena that has us reeling, though that would be quite enough. But at any moment, the broader collective stress of wars, disease, disasters, North Carolina hurricane, the California fires, and now the flooding there. The flooding, catastrophic flooding this weekend in Kentucky, Tennessee, where I'm from. Earthquakes and volcanoes all over the planet. I wonder if Sandarina will still be here tomorrow. The plane crashes. The lingering effects of COVID, make no mistake, those are huge. It's all the behind the scenes scenario that we don't have a clue of what's really going on behind closed doors. But our body feels all of this stress. There's so much misinformation and alternative facts, which I always thought were lies. It's hard for us to decipher what is true. Up close and personal are the struggles of daily living. Our physical health, that of ones we love, the financial struggles that so many of us face, the various sadnesses, your brother's wife's death, be it a good death. Death is hard. And for a lot of people, will I lose my job today? Victor was just telling me of a friend that at 4:45 said, you're fired at 5 o'clock yesterday. How are we supposed to cope with all of this? It is chaos. It's very difficult to cope. And yet, here we are, gathered in community, supporting one another. We are birthing hope despite the engraved invitations we are getting that push us to the edge and perhaps into despair. It is not a pretty picture. It sort of feels like Charles Dickens, the Bulletin, the best of times, perhaps, the worst of times. But then along comes Marianne Williamson. We're living in a time when, yeah, they're monsters, and there are angels, and some are sitting right here beside you. I am in awe of Amanda Gorman. That LA fire was at her doorstep, and yet she pins the poem, Smoldering Dawn. She wanted to process her own fears and the prayers as we come together as a community. Come together as a community to heal the trauma. Bravely we bond, she says. May it be so. I want to explain those little pieces of paper to you. I'd like you to write down anything that I say that resonates with you or otherwise sparks your imagination. I come as much to seek your wisdom as to share my experience. Many of you are experts in areas of which I know very little. So maybe together we can piece together a quilt, a path that will take us where we choose to go. Let me forewarn you, I will not go down the rabbit hole of trying to explore this current political situation. I'll leave that for people far more knowledgeable than I about the subject, especially Heather Cox Richardson. And I'm sure you have your preferred sources. And I do refer you to this morning's message from Marianne Williamson. Certain principles to guide us. Don't go to sleep. We are not going to minimize the problem, but we're not going to nullify our fierceness. I won't go into the rest of all she said. You can find it on YouTube or some other source. But she does end it by quoting Albert Camus. Is that right, Camus? Makes me happy in the midst of winter, for I found within me an invincible summer. This invincible summer is you, says Marianne Williamson. So perhaps after I speak, we can look at some of the comments that you may have to say. For me to enter that arena is to be like Alice choosing to go to Wonderland. Why would I do that? Similarly, if you saw the movie a few years ago, Everywhere, Everything, All at Once, it's an assault of our senses, time traveling in a psychotic fashion to change the past, to change the future, to change the present. Even if I believe time isn't real, I can't process that. But that is how I've been feeling. Dizzy, disoriented, disbelieving, literally sick, literally. I've had more migraines in the last few weeks than I have in my whole life, including one when I drove up this morning. But full stop. How is that helping me? How is that helping anyone? I ask myself the question I have been asking for years. Who am I, and why am I here? Before we can go from here to there, we best explore that basic question. Why would I choose to read Rumi's The Guest House? Seriously, are we to welcome into our home the calamities that we are facing? Well, in short, yeah. Yes, we are. For his invitation is to know ourselves. The inaccurate assumptions that we hold are just that, inaccurate. The unrealistic expectations we hold are just that, unrealistic. How can any of us revise our thinking without that mighty upheaval that removes our blinders and gives us clear vision? It is in the midst of these wretched experiences we see what we do not want, and therefore can be more clear-headed about what we do want. Only when that clarity is in place can we be more clear-headed and choose to go from here. What will we choose to allow in our lives? Then there's that hymn, "It is well with my soul." Seriously? What we're living through right now is not okay with me. How is it well with my soul? Well, let's think about the author, Horatio Spafford. He knew tragedy. First, he was financially ruined by the property fire in the Chicago fire, 1871. Went from bad to worse with the economic downturn in 1873. Then he intended to leave to go to England with his family and is delayed, of all things, by some zoning disputes over his damaged property in Chicago. He sent his wife and daughters ahead, intending to join them shortly. Tragically, that ship sank. All 4 of his daughters were drowned, along with over 200 other passengers. His wife survived, though I can't imagine that she felt anything but wishing she had perished with them too. He rushed to join her. It is when his ship came to his daughter's ocean gravesite that he penned these words: "It is well with my soul." How can that be? This is a song of grief, an unbearable grief, a grief that obliterates everything when his house was swept empty, leaving only that which is deeper. For him, it was his faith. From his bedrock of faith, he was clear about how he could face tomorrow. Now I'd like to get personal and share a few of my recent experiences starting in November of 2024. I left for a planned visit to Japan 2 days after the election. Never have I been so glad to leave this country. I was as dismayed as I was angry. My assumption, my inaccurate assumption, was that our citizens believed in justice and freedom for all. That was shattered. I'd had evidence to the contrary for many years, but nonetheless, I held it as sacred, as a given. I thought it was true. Now I felt sick in every sense of that word. Clearly, a critical mass of people does not share my values. I did not know where to go from there, but to get on that plane. During the flight, I buried myself in Louise Penny's latest novel, confident that the good guys would win, if you can call it a win when so many innocent people die and are damaged. Happily, I am still shocked by the malevolence, what's that word, of some of the greedy, power-hungry people. I'm glad I'm shocked. I prefer seeing the goodness of people. Psychiatrist Scott Peck delved into that area of evil in the book People of the Lie, published in 1983. The second half of that title is The Hope for Healing. He writes about transformative compassion. I'm more comfortable focusing on the compassion than the evil, though I recognize now more than ever that both exist. A few days after I landed in Japan, I was at Toji Temple. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Kyoto, founded in 794, and it's still there. There's been some burning and it's been replaced, but it's still there. It's dedicated to praying for national peace. Subsequently, it was given to the founder of the Shingo School of Japanese Buddhism. It is a grand and imposing temple, 5-story pagoda. As I wandered around the grounds alone, I came across a plaque written in Japanese and English in front of an algiri tree, a phoenix tree. That is the offshoot of one of the trees that survived the atomic bomb in Hiroshima in 1945. Its ancestors stood less than 2 miles from the impact of the explosion. It was scarred, but survived. Descendants of that tree are planted all over the world to represent the importance of peace. In your bulletin insert is the story of one of the singers, Metis. The algiri is known, it's under a phoenix tree. You can look at more. It's a heartbreaking story about her grandmother who watched her mother and her sister die in the explosion. Read her words. The phoenix trees can't speak, but they have strived to live despite the atomic bombing. As I paid homage to that tree at Toji, I felt a sadness too deep for words. and also a resilience, an assurance that our country will survive, not unscathed, but live despite the suffering. Let me tell you about a lighthearted moment in Kyoto. We need some of that, don't we? I was determined to find a certain Japanese toy, a cousin of Hello Kitty, cinnamon roll, for a little friend of mine. A 10-year-old girl born with a congenital adrenal condition. It was one of those improbable encounters where my husband, who is an expert on that condition, met the grandmother of this baby just a couple of weeks after she was born. He gave her the name and phone number to call the next day to have that child moved immediately to another hospital where one of his colleagues is also an expert. It's a rare condition. I hope you never experience it. I've never met this little girl, but it's fair to say I love her. I love that unlikely encounter that made such a difference with so little effort on our part. So now back to Kyoto. Kyoto Station is this massive 5-story multi-box complex train station, bus station, department store, restaurants. I walked for over 2 miles looking for this little specialty shop where I could find cinnamon roll. Several people tried to direct me to a bakery, thinking it was a pastry. It was quite funny, but not helpful. I couldn't find the store, but I had to find the store. So I sat down on a bench, and there was a youngish man, at least half my age, or perhaps more. I pulled the site up on my phone and put it in his face. I need to go there. He looked at me like, you crazy woman. And I just said, I need to go there. He immediately pulled it up on his phone and stood up and said, I have time. Now I was the puzzled one. Then I realized he's offering to escort me to this store. And frankly, I wouldn't have found it otherwise. Twists and turns and here and there. But then, ta-da, there we were. I hope I remembered to say arigato before he disappeared. I doubt he will even remember it. But to me and my little friend, it was a beautiful gift. He was my hummingbird, doing what he could to make a positive difference for a stranger. If you could have seen the joy on this little girl's face when she opened the gift bag, you'd know why I had to do this. During my 2 weeks in Japan, there were many moments of awe and gratitude. It took me going away to a very foreign country where the written and spoken word are so very different from anything I've known to sweep away my inner worries. It was disoriented, and I was very glad to have a tour guide and a few other Americans to go with me. I visited temples and shrines and museums and gardens. I visited an island that was some years ago sacrificed as a copper refinery, destroyed the farms of several thousand people until copper went bust. It had destroyed the island and now abandoned it. It's now being rebirthed as an art island. There are several other little islands around where people from all over the world are now going to these art islands. Resilience after destruction. The biggest irony of all was how at home I felt there. These kind people who held no grudge against me for what my country had done to them, for unleashing the reign of hell on them, on their ancestors, albeit before my birth. Can I show the same compassion for those whom I hold responsible for the reign of hell they're unleashing on us? Perhaps or not. We shall see. Last year, I told you about a young girl from war-torn Algeria whose family won the lottery and immigrated to France because one man did the least he could do. He wrote their names on the form for the lottery because the mother was illiterate and could not. He very likely does not even remember what his single act of kindness was. It was the least he could do. One flap of his butterfly wings changed the life of this family and all the lives they continue to touch. This year I had the words with joy. Do the least you can do with joy. If it gives you joy, plant a seed for a tree you will never see grow to maturity. Light a candle. Fill your home with music, with art, whatever it takes to raise your spirit. A guru once told a classroom, it's likely you will not be asked to run into a burning building to save someone. But you can help around the house, wash the dishes, take out the trash. Joyfully. It all starts where you are right now, doing what you can do to raise your own and others' spirits. Hildegard of Bingen once said, even in a world that's being shipwrecked, remain brave and strong. When I'm a hummingbird or a butterfly, I feel strong. By putting into motion a sequence of events that can make a difference, trusting that what I do does, in fact, make a difference, that emboldens me. I can make friends. I can feed people at my table. I can start a ball rolling to create a fundraiser for a needy neighbor, knowing full well others will join. And with very little effort on our part, we will renew a lonely person's faith in herself and in others. I can do all sorts of things that bring me joy. Coming here today, knowing joy is contagious. And so can you. Do the least you can do with joy. At least that's working for me some of the time. When I get caught up in the chaos, I remind myself that these small acts of kindnesses add up, though I may know nothing of the ripple effect that they will bring. But I do know ripple effects. I know there's an impact. They may seem not enough. Don't tell that to my little friend or to that Algerian family. Rather than asking, where do we go from here? I leave you with this question. What will you allow in your life? What is the least you can do with joy? I thank you. Arigato.
Does anybody have a question?
Thank you so much. You moved me to tears. My father was in the Philippines when the atomic bomb landed. And he knew he was going home. And he hated the Japanese. In the early 60s, probably 15, 16, 17 years later, he was stationed in Japan for 2 years. We had to stay home. He came back in love with the Japanese people. It happens. And I think in order to rewrite our brains, reprogram our brains, because trauma, the stronger, the neurologists say, our neuroscientists say, that the stronger the emotion, the stronger the memory. They also say that every memory is a memory of a memory. You don't remember the original event. And so we have a chance to change our memories from traumatic to for love. You can have love replace that fear. You can have love for yourself. You can have love for the perpetrator, which is, it would obviously take a lot of time. But just saying, I don't know their path. I don't know what brought them to the point where they could do this evil. Maybe as a child, your father withheld his love and only gave you approval when you were a winner. What would that do to a soul?
Thank you, Mike, for sharing. Thank you. Your word allow, it's critical because we can want, we can wish, and at the same time, we cannot allow. And until we can allow, it's not going to happen. And it's really scary to be able to, when we are challenged and upset, to be able to find ourselves a tiny, tiny place of peace allows us to go forward. The first thing I wrote down was birthing hope. You know, if we can do that, everything's got to shift. Thank you.
This is what I wrote down as a pragmatist. It has to be well with our soul. The alternative is not helpful.
I just want to say it's been a very long time since I've been in here for a service, and I am really glad that I came today to hear you. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Very good.
Well, thank you so much.